Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Haya Yahya, and I will be your moderator for this session. So if you've been following DAR these past few weeks, you'll know we've been holding a series of virtual panel discussions in honor of World Engineering Day for Sustainable Development. So this event is a new occasion. It was proclaimed by UNESCO in 2019 and celebrated last year for the first time. And it celebrates engineers, specifically their role in helping communities achieve the United Nations' 17 Sustainable Development Goals for 2030. So our session today is the final session in this series, and it focuses on one goal that is as diverse and wide-ranging as it is important. And that goal is Sustainable Development Goal number 9, Industry, Innovation, and Infrastructure. So as you can see from these targets, SDG 9 tackles a number of key issues that are incredibly important for creating thriving, productive, and sustainable and successful communities. So these issues include things like developing reliable, sustainable, and resilient infrastructure that can actually support economic development, increasing industrialization, retrofitting industries and infrastructure to make it more sustainable, and healthier to the environment, and increasing access, if you look at that last goal, increasing access to information and communication technology as a key driver of progress. So when you read through such targets, it becomes clear that to achieve a goal like SDG 9, a community needs an alliance of policymakers, it needs researchers, manufacturers, and of course, engineers of various backgrounds. So as a company, DAR is most directly involved in the targets that are highlighted, so 9.1, 9.4, 9.A, and 9.C. But even if you just take those targets that are related to upgrading infrastructure and creating resilient infrastructure, and even if you just talk about one country, you're still talking about a very wide-ranging and complex task. There are all kinds of infrastructure: water, marine, electric, telecom, and so on and so forth. And each one of them requires its own group of specialists. That's why our panel today actually hosts a number of specialists from very, very different backgrounds. And actually, the one thing that they have in common is that each one of them has, in his or her own way, extensive experience in helping communities achieve the goals of SDG 9. So I have the honor today to welcome Dr. Sousan Isa. Dr. Sousan, she's the head of DAR's Marine Design Unit, and she has been for over 17 years. She's also a professor of Port and Coastal Engineering at Cairo University, and for over 30 years, she has been helping communities design more resilient coastline infrastructure, as well as port and marine facilities that help drive economies. Dr. Sousan, thank you so much for being with us. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you, Haya.
We also have, joining us today is also Mr. Ahmed Al-Assad. Ahmed is a senior ICT and security and telecommunications engineer, and he's a specialist in advanced wireless communications. Ahmed, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Haya. I mean, it's a privilege to be in this event, to be honest. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We also have Ms. Ghana Annan. So Ghana is one of DAR's leading sustainability specialists. She is an expert in high-performance building design, and she's a veteran in some of the world's leading sustainability certification systems, including LEED, GSAS, EDGE, and many others. Ghana, we're very happy to have you today.
Thank you so much, Haya. Thank you.
And finally, we have Mr. Mohammed Shibaro. Mohammed specializes in studying and designing state-of-the-art electrical infrastructure with key new technologies, including smart city technologies and renewable energy. Mohammed has a fascinating background. He also holds a dual degree in business information and decision systems. Mohammed, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for your kind introduction. It's my pleasure indeed.
Before we dive into our first speaker, I would just like to let our audience know that we will be having a short Q&A session at the end of the panel. So if you have any questions for any of the speakers during the session, you can submit them to me through the Q&A chat, and I will address them to our speakers at the end of the session. But for now, we're beginning our session today with Mr. Ahmed Al-Assad.
Hi.
Hi, Ahmed.
Hi, how are you doing?
So if there's one form of infrastructure that is very important for economic progress, it's going to be information and communication technology infrastructure. So tell us a little bit about it. What's its growing role in today's world, and especially how does it relate to SDG 9?
Absolutely. I mean, as you mentioned, it's considered a very important part of our modern infrastructure, and it's an integral part, I think we all agree, of our daily lives. And why is that? I mean, if you want to share photos with your friends, if you want to book a hotel or a trip online, or if you want to be paying your phone bill, all this you have to do with accessibility to internet, to broadband. And this was pre-pandemic, extremely important, and now post-pandemic it's become even more so important with the rollout of online education as well as medical consultation. So it's spreading through different sectors. In order to be able to have access to these services, you really need resilient infrastructure such as the ICT infrastructure that we're going to be talking about shortly. A resilient digital infrastructure that will give you a secure and reliable access to these services. This importance was recognized a few years back, even before the pandemic, by international organizations such as the UN and ITU, and that's why it's part of this SDG goals, right? And more so, it's become so important, as I just mentioned, in the last year after the pandemic, because I mean, it was the fate of different businesses, of governments on the line if they don't have a good digital platform for these services. And I mean, SDG 9, as you mentioned before, it has to do with a resilient infrastructure that would, in the case of ICT, promote industrialization, sustainability, and foster innovation. And this is why we're talking about basically the basis of the infrastructure that will enable all these services, and it's growing at exponential pace, and it's now being considered as one of the most important utilities alongside water and energy. So this is why I'm very happy to be discussing it today, and this is really its integral part of the in the SDG 9 as well as the different other SDGs as well for the UN.
That's very true. And Ahmed, my next question is, how does this translate on a tech? So we know that it's very important, but how does it translate on a technical engineering level? What are the main components of this advanced ICT infrastructure that you've been applying in countries around the world?
Right, because it's World Engineering Day, I'll try to keep it as I guess, straightforward as possible. So one of the main components of that infrastructure is what is known as fiber optic cabling, right? So why is fiber optic cabling so important in terms of an infrastructure? I mean, I'm hearing it left and right, FTTX, in terms of fiber to the home, fiber to the building, fiber to the curb. I'm pretty sure at least 80% of us have heard these terminologies before, but why is fiber becoming such an increasingly important component of this infrastructure? Is it because it provides us with higher speeds of internet? Is it because it can span longer distances? It's easier to install because it's thinner and is more immune to environmental conditions. You know what? All of the above. And one thing that it has a huge advantage of is whether you're installing it in developing countries or in developed countries. The aspect that is key, in my opinion, for using it in the infrastructure is its future-proofing, right? So you are basically setting up an infrastructure that not only will give you access to broadband internet in remote areas or in developing countries, but it will also enable you to get those applications, those very smart applications that we're going to be talking about, I'm sure, in this panel, and accessibility to services that are more and more desired, and the growing technological aspects of things. So this is only one component of these, and you have others. So I was referring to the fiber optic cable that you can see here. in order to protect that fiber optic cable, you have other components, which are the duct banks. So this is the containment where they roll out the fiber optic cables within. The manholes and handholds are basically what you see on the street when you're driving, I guess, and hopefully not hit them in Lebanon because it gets really bumpy. These enable future maintenance and operations as well without causing too many disruptions, and just enable the routing of these fiber optic cables. So those are key components to the wired infrastructure that we need for that digital world that we're living in. And alongside that, we do have a need for also wireless technologies. And I mean, we're all using cell phones, obviously, and this is enabled by what I referred here as cellular towers, GSM towers, that are also visible across the nation, I guess.
Wonderful. So that's the nuts and bolts of it. Of course, as engineers who work on the ground, you also face other challenges, other types of challenges. So what are the main considerations when you're working on the ground and designing this infrastructure for a real community?
I mean, absolutely. You hit that right on. I mean, it's a great thing to have this digital infrastructure, but it takes a lot of coordination. I mean, you have to be coordinating with city planners, with the service providers. Every city of the modern cities, at least, has a master plan. So you have to be in line with that master plan to make sure that you have two types of projects, Haya. So one is greenfield and one is brownfield. The greenfield basically is kind of a dream project where you don't have much happening. It's not an existing infrastructure, it's not an existing city. So what you're doing, basically, you're going wild with your infrastructure. You are able to really control how you want and be in line with the master plan for that area, as well as accommodate for any future growth and digitalization of the world. The real challenge comes in a brownfield project where you already have a metropolis or a city. In the modern cities, whether they're European, African, or Far Eastern or North American, right? You have an existing infrastructure. You would have to first check out that infrastructure, see if that infrastructure is resilient enough and future-proofed enough. And then you would have to coordinate with all those involved stakeholders. I mean, you don't want to disrupt the flow of the city too much, right? And at the same time, you want to develop a digital infrastructure that will bring extremely wonderful services that we all can account for in these cities. So that challenge of having an existing infrastructure and having to either replace it, expand it, add to it, remove some of it, with some of these components that I mentioned, whether it's fiber optic, containment, and all that. I mean, it would cause minor disruption, but it has to be really well coordinated across all disciplines with other utilities as well and stuff to really keep the flow of the city and the functionality of all the utilities happening, and at the same time provide for future services.
Yes, and speaking of future services, I know you and your team are consistently introducing latest technologies and ICT. So what is the future here in this tech sector, and what are the trends that are promising to do really well?
Well, let me tell you, I mean, that is an exciting field, and we've been working with several teams across different disciplines on what you're hinting, I'm assuming, which is like the where the future is going and where things have been implemented already, which are smart cities, right? I mean, this digital infrastructure that we're creating, yes, it does help developing countries, right? It provides them with access to broadband, which is extremely necessary, and hopefully with sufficient funding, with sufficient basically investments and stuff, they would be acquiring some of the smart services. But let's take a step back. What is really a smart city? There are so many definitions to what a smart city is, and it's still an ongoing process to really acknowledging how we would define it. But I'll try. I looked up some of the definitions, and one of them, it just summarized it in a way that I liked it, to be honest. And it's a way that it's a city that's utilizing the ICT infrastructure that we're discussing here to increase or optimize the operational efficiency of the city. Okay, it enables to share information with the people, and it provides a better quality of government services as well as citizen welfare and honestly applications that will help the citizen be more comfortable. So this is in brief what you can consider as a smart city. But how is the ICT infrastructure so critical to that smart city? Well, so what we're doing, we're spreading out different sensors of all sorts across the city, and this is in the slide that we're seeing here, known as collecting that information through those smart devices and through those smart sensors everywhere, and utilizing whether the wired or wireless infrastructure that we have to communicate all that information back to key hubs, key digital hubs that we have, whether they're called the data centers or the operational centers. So that process of communicating that information, first retrieving it via the infrastructure components, communicating via the infrastructure components, and eventually those key hubs to analyze the information, share it with some personnel or automated machinery, and react to that in the city. And the reaction is intended to improve the efficiency, keep in mind the sustainability, which is why we're all here today, and as well provide services, whether it's for the government to make it more efficient and helpful to the citizens, or just high-tech technology, high-tech applications that everybody can use, that we are all growing so much more attached to every day, I think. So this is how a smart city really functions, and the important role that ICT plays within it, the key role that, going back to what I said initially, as important possibly as energy or water. And at this point, I mean, this is very nice to just talk about it, but I would like to concretize what we're talking about, give you like an example that some of us has seen already in some of the cities, and this is why it's an example of one of those smart city applications that we can all take advantage of and use, right? And I'm referring to the smart lighting pole that you guys can see on the slide. So why is this really cool? Because we're able to achieve so many different smart applications via one device. For instance, I was talking about the environmental aspect of the city. So I have sensors checking out the temperature, the humidity, the air pollution within the city via distributed throughout the city on those smart poles. I can also work the lighting and optimize the lighting depending on the sensors that are recognizing the brightness in the city and whether to have lighting on, the level of lighting necessary and all that. One of the beautiful features, obviously, just having Wi-Fi spots and that we can all use. And for public safety, it's also very critical, and this is debatable, but and we've seen that in a lot of the modern cities, having CCTV monitoring for people, for vehicles, and just making sure that public safety is taken into account and key in order to prevent crime as well as to react quickly enough when necessary. Okay, another aspect of public safety that's achieved by that is the emergency call, which is the ability, if we want, I mean, again, those are all different features that are mentioned. There are more features, not all of them need to be implemented, but those are some of the features that are really cool that we're talking about. So emergency call just gives you access to the city's emergency center, you know, to be able to react if you need help, emergency in terms of medical, someone had a heart attack, God forbid, in front of you, and you want to just get services, and this is the fastest way to do it. And from a sustainability aspect, it is also extremely helpful because of all the electric and bicycle that require charging electric cars that are spreading everywhere in the world right now. So these are some of the key aspects. You can also add a display to inform and communicate with the citizen, whether it's to guide them through the city or to tourists that are coming in, or just to communicate any important messages, right? So this is really one of the smart city applications that we have the pleasure of seeing around us, as well as designing and I mean, these technologies are booming all over the world, and it's amazing to be part of that, to be involved in that. And they are really changing, and I have to say, enhancing our everyday life. And this is why it's of great importance to keep that in mind when looking at or reading about smart cities. Right? I just hope that I made the point a bit clear about some of these beautiful applications and the effort that is being done, whether at Dar or anywhere else in the world, really, to design smart cities and to build the infrastructure to enable such applications.
Wow, thank you so much for that, Ahmed. That was actually a great look into smart technologies, and they've actually they've been cropping up in conversations everywhere about creating more resilient and more sustainable infrastructure, and that was just one of the examples, of course. Actually, we have a speaker today. Our next speaker. Thank you, Ahmed. We'll come back hopefully with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was a pleasure, and I'm excited to hear what he has to say as well.
Wow, awesome. So our next speaker, Muhammad.
Yes, hello.
Hi, Muhammad. How are you?
Hi, all is good.
So Muhammad is joining us to actually talk about smart cities. He's our resident smart city expert, and Muhammad has been helping clients incorporate smart city technologies like the one Ahmed talked about and the one Ahmed is working on. And he's been working on that for over 4 years. Muhammad, from your perspective as both an electrical engineer and a business professional, I'll leave the floor to you to explain what is a smart city and what does the road to a smart city look like for all of us.
Yes, thank you. So to recapitulate, a smart sustainable city is an innovative city that uses information and communication technologies to improve the quality of life, efficiency of urban services and operations and competition, while meeting the needs of current and future generations with respect to social, economic, environmental, as well as cultural aspects. So how to scope a smart city solution, how to deliver a smart city project. In order to do so, we need to define 5 models. First, we have the strategic purpose, the operating model, the commercial model, the financial model, and the delivery model. As for the strategic purpose, it's a response to the following questions. Why are we doing this? What are the key social, economic, environmental aspects and the environmental outcomes, and how these outcomes would contribute to the priorities of the city? As for the operating models, it's a response to the following question. What are the people, processes, data, and technologies involved, and what is the relationship between these components? How do they interact? Regarding the commercial model, this model shall define the commercial relationship between smart city stakeholders. The financial model will explain where the investments for the development will come from. As for the delivery model, this model shall explain the delivery stages of the smart city project. And our discussion today will be mainly focusing on the strategic purpose and the operating model, as these 2 models are prerequisite for the design and planning procedures. So now we'll go deeper into the strategic purpose. Every smart city strategy shall be visionary, as it shall have a clear vision owned by all stakeholders. It shall be also citizen-centric, fulfilling all citizen needs. It shall be digitally enabled with robust, resilient ICT infrastructure, and it shall be collaborative with ecosystem enabling any type of collaboration. Also, the smart city strategy shall be compliant with the national visions. For instance, we have the Saudi Vision 2030, Dubai Vision 2021, New Kuwait, Oman Vision. Every country has its own vision. This strategy also shall be compliant and inspired by the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. So what is a smart city strategy and what are the main components of a smart city strategy? The smart city strategy is an iterative process. It is based on 3 main pillars, the 3 Ps, people, profits, and plans, all together ensuring a sustainable strategy is being delivered. So we'll start by defining the mission and the vision, a clear mission and vision owned by all stakeholders. Then we'll go to the stakeholder assessment procedure by identifying, classifying, and engaging stakeholders. After that, we'll go through a macro environmental analysis by analyzing internal strengths and weaknesses, as well as global opportunities and threats based on political, environmental, social, technical, ethical, and legal aspects. Then we shall perform a benchmarking analysis by looking at landmark projects and cities globally, grabbing the state-of-the-art and latest technologies to build on it. The outcome of a smart city strategy are goals and objectives that shall be aligned with the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. Then the process will iterate itself. We shall update the mission, the vision, based on new technologies, based on new national visions and the new outcomes. So after defining the smart city strategy, we shall go into the technologies identification and selection process. Technology can be classified into three main categories. It is either an enabling technology infrastructure, which is a prerequisite for the smart systems. For instance, we have the fiber optic networks, 5G, GSM towers, data center, command and control center, command and operation center. The second category is the disruptive technology solutions, which are innovative solutions with a proof of work and market. And here we can list the photovoltaic panels, EV chargers, smart poles, advanced metering infrastructure, 3D printing, smart irrigation, smart waste management system. The third category is for formative technology innovations, which are new technologies in their early development stages. For instance, we have the blockchain technology, the internet balloon, the Hyperloop, and robots. So after identifying, classifying technologies, now we shall select the most suitable technologies for our project. Technologies are selected based on multi-criteria analysis, taking into consideration the technical viability versus the strategic value. By that, we need to assess the life cost of the technology by looking into the CapEx, the OpEx, as well as the environmental value in terms of sustainability and impact on the environment, and the strategic value, mainly how this technology will contribute to the national vision. The outcome of multi-criteria analysis is a matrix showing the technical viability versus the strategic viability, where the most suitable technologies for our projects shall be selected. Now we have covered the strategic purpose, the first model. We'll go into the operating models. After selecting technologies, we have to select systems based on the previously selected technologies. So within a pool of smart systems, such as smart grid, smart road lighting, smart parkings, EV charging, smart buildings, smart waste management system, we need to select the most suitable systems for our project. And for every system, we have to identify its respective architecture by identifying the system components and the physical and digital relationships between these components. Third, we need to identify the system functionalities by setting the function requirements and the key performance indicators. So let's have an example to clarify the idea. We'll go deeper into the smart grid. As you know, a conventional grid is a linear system, going from generation, transmission, distribution, toward consumption. This system is identified or is characterized by only two stakeholders: the utility service providers, taking care of the generation, transmission, distribution, trading, and the consumer, who is consuming electricity and paying his bills. So this the conventional grid system is characterized by only physical connection between the stakeholders and limited flow of information. As we look into the smart grid, it has several newly introduced technologies. Namely, we have the advanced metering infrastructure, which enables distributed energy resources, supported by energy storage, all together connected in microgrids supplied by digital substations managed by energy management systems with the presence of electric vehicle charging solutions and smart road lighting. The smart grid is characterized by bidirectional flow of power and supply between all the components. in order to deliver sustainable clean energy, sustainable economy, and sustainable secure living. So if we look deeper into the architecture of the smart grid, the smart grid has a circular architecture connecting all the components with bidirectional flow of power and information, putting the user at the center of the system. As for smart grid functionalities, we can list real-time metering, volt-var optimization, power flow optimization, automatic switching, fault prediction, many functionalities based on ICT technologies. As for the organization of the smart grid, now we have the generation service provider separate from the transmission service providers, separate from the distribution service providers, separate from the traders, and at the end we have the prosumers. And here we need to highlight that the consumer now is producing energy via rooftop photovoltaics and advanced metering infrastructure, and through state-of-the-art combined and heat power technologies installed at the premises of the user. This organization shall enable higher competition, thus better service provided in terms of cost, in terms of resilience, reliability, stability, and for sure energy efficiency. Finally, we have the key performance indicators. Every smart system shall have predefined key performance indicators to guide designers and planners, operators, as well as system integrators in order to deliver a sustainable system. The key performance indicators are mainly inspired by the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. As for the smart grid, we can list the percentage of people with access to electricity, percentage of citizens where smart meters are installed, the consumption per citizen, the consumption per facility, the frequency of interruption, the duration of the interruption, as well as we can list the level of ICT participation in the electrical infrastructure. This study, as well as the two models, the strategic model and the operative model, are based on international standards and regulations, namely the International Telecommunication Unit Standards, IEC, British Standards, ISO, as well as the United Nations guidelines. Thank you.
Mohammed, thank you so much for that talk. There's a new announcement, which is that after years of helping clients incorporate smart technologies like the pole and like the smart grid, there is actually soon launching a service with over 100 of these smart technologies that can be used on really any scale. But that's a topic hopefully for another session. So just a word to our audience, if you have any questions for Mohammed, please send them over. We already have some questions already, but I will hopefully be asking all of them at the end of the session. Thank you, Mohammed, again.
Thank you for this great opportunity. It's my pleasure to be part of this great event.
Okay, it's a pleasure to have you. Our next speaker is Dr. Sausan. Excuse me. So Dr. Sausan Isa is going to be discussing a very different, but just as essential form of infrastructure, and that is marine and port facilities. So as we were discussing before, SDG 9 is about using infrastructure, all forms of infrastructure, to promote economy and industrialization. And more than 80% of world merchandise trade is transported by sea, which makes maritime transport and marine infrastructure a very critical enabler of trade and globalization. And with climate change, we have the difficulties of rising seawater levels, waves, and floods. We have a big crisis at the moment in the Suez Canal, and so on. So Dr. Isa, part of your role is protecting coastal communities from such events. What does that involve exactly, and what are the challenges?
Thank you for the question, Haya. I would like to give a quick introduction about what we do in marine, coastal, and port engineering. Actually, we design and construct development for the well-being of people. We can heal an eroded beach. We promote the use of technology in our design construction. Our designs and constructions are resilient by nature. Otherwise, they would have never survived in the harsh marine environment. So we are totally in compliance with SDG 9. So let's have a quick look some examples in the interaction between our designs and the surrounding environment and the sea. Of course, we work at the shoreline mainly and surrounding it, which is the first defense for land against sea action, tide, and waves. And let's take a look at this example. This is from a coastal area in England, and it shows how wave overtopping can be very harsh. It can cause harms in the back area, and it is part of our work to protect from such overtopping. Also, the rising tides and sea level rise are dangers that is coming to recognition since some time, but in the they are talking a lot about them. This is an example for a chapel in the Philippines. Of course, when it was first built, it was on land. And then due to the overgoing sea level rise, it is now in the middle of the sea. Also, it's part of our work to protect from such events. Also, these are examples of port and coastal projects, so that audience can have some idea about, of what I'm talking about. This is a beach nourishment. Photo shows a beach nourishment. It's filling the beach, usually eroded area, with sand to compensate what was lost due to storms and sea actions. We normally use groins with them, which are structures that are perpendicular to the shoreline, and you can see a number in the photo as well. This helps to promote the shoreline, to protect the eroded area, but it can have some adverse effects. So we have to study it very well before implementation. Another example of our project is the breakwaters. Breakwaters are structures that can be parallel or almost parallel to shoreline, or can be connected to the shoreline. In a way, this one is a detached breakwater. It isn't connected to the shoreline, but what you can see as a connection is actually the deposition by the breakwater intentionally, because it brings water to a more calmer state. So the sediment deposits and it develops a beach. So, but we have to be careful that erosion might be happening on the other side of the breakwater. So this is something that, of course, we have to study and be very careful about. Another example, which is the most famous example of marine and port engineering, it comes in the name of our mission. It's ports. Ports are like small cities, actually. This is the port of Rotterdam. It's the 5th biggest port in the world. It has, in its industrial areas, it has factories. It handles hundreds of millions of tons of cargo every year. So, of course, with a development of this and this nature, it has to be studied very carefully. Technologies has to be implemented during design and construction, and of course during operation of the port and its industrial area. It provides great opportunities for human development, job opportunities, improves the economy and trade, and it's a very big project, type of project, and it has to be studied very carefully. What do we do when we start a port or marine project so that we study it carefully, minimize its adverse effect, maximize its benefit? First of all, we have to do data collection. We collect a number of important sets of data, like bathymetric survey. Bathymetric survey is the survey of seabed to know the levels that, of course, we will use after that in the design and construction process. Bathymetric surveys are carried out using a boat and an echo sounder, a device that works with sound. We must do geotechnical investigation, offshore geotechnical investigation in the sea to know the nature of the seabed, the type of soil, the bearing capacity, and the like. And we do mid-ocean measurements like waves, currents, and tides, so we can have data to use in our design. So after that, it comes the studies. The most famous type of studies that we do in our design and construction is the numerical modeling. Numerical modeling is using software specially developed to simulate the important phenomena in the marine environment and get output that we use in the design. We do numerical modeling for waves. We do numerical modeling for circulation and flushing to study the water renewal in the project area. We do sedimentation and shoreline to check the effect of the intended development on the surrounding shoreline. We do plume and dispersion modeling to check if we are going to do dredging in the seabed, how will the resulting sediment disperse in the surroundings, how much it will affect the environment, and then design the protection measure needed so we can protect the environment during construction. We do navigational simulations to see how the ships will act. Basically, this is done for ports, for big ships. And the requirements that we need, like tugboats and aids to navigation, to make these ships navigate and move safely without endangering the surroundings. And you have mentioned this accident that happened a few days ago in Suez Canal. And we do mooring analysis to check the safety of the ships while mooring on the berth and calculate forces and then the berth structure to resist such forces. So another type of modeling is the physical modeling. And physical modeling, this is a video from one of our projects that we do physical modeling for. What we do is actually we take the design, we scale it to a smaller scale. So it's like building a small structure in the laboratory. Scale the waves as well, so that we have smaller waves, but suitable for the scaled structure. And then see how the structure will change, how are the blocks and rocks that consist in the structure will move and relocate. We can collect the water going over the structure so we can know the overtopping discharge and then use them in design. We can install pressure sensors and we can get an idea about the pressures on the structures for the design and check the design. So this is about physical modeling. So in our industry, which is design and construction of port and marine works, we have a lot of challenges. For construction, imagine constructing, actually any type of construction, it will have an effect in the surrounding environment. But something like a port, of course, we have the conventional types of environmental effects like the pollution, the noise. We have the challenge of the existing coastal structures. How are we going to protect them during the construction so that they are protected? If there is any underwater facilities like pipelines or cables, we need to relocate them or protect them so that they aren't affected by the construction. Existing water courses like rivers and lakes and the like, if we have one of those in the vicinity, we need to protect them as well from sedimentation resulting from the construction process. So these are some challenges. There are many and many of those. The photos shows the turbidity resulting from dredging processes, which is basically the excavation of seabed that we need for construction of mainly ports and marinas. And we normally install or use some measures to decrease such sedimentation, as we will see later. So these are the challenges. To mitigate such challenges as much as possible, we use an array of technologies. So how do we do sustainability and resilience while doing construction and design as well? The silk curtains, for example, the photo to the right, it's the good old-fashioned silk curtain. It has been used in construction for protection from sedimentation while doing reclamation and dredging for decades now. So what is this? The new is that we have some forms from these silk curtains for more protection, more heavy duty, can be installed for a longer time. And actually we have variations. Like now we have curtains that can protect from environmental pollution like plastic bags and the like. We have oil spill booms, which are also can be considered a variation of silk curtains. So this is one thing that we do during construction. So just let's go to the previous one, please. The earlier slide. Yes, the other measure to the left, it's the artificial coral reef or reef balls. These are designs that we use. It's basically a ball made of concrete with holes in it. They are installed in the areas of coral reef and where marine environmental value is present, like seagrass and corals. Basically, corals grow in them, and then we can get like fish feeding on corals. So you are, by this we promote diversity and extend the environmental value, and also compensate for what gets lost from corals and the marine environment due to construction processes in nearby areas. So what else do we use in marine construction? We have like noise control systems. Noise control systems in marine construction is actually devices that are can be installed during construction or even operation if we have some that is specifically noise, like oil rigs, for example, or during of marine piles. It's a device that emits bubbles, and the characteristics of gas bubbles in diverting and scattering noise has been known for a long time in water, fluid and marine engineering. So we have basically like a curtain of bubbles, contains and scatters the noise within them, so that the surroundings do not feel the noise or hear a very little noise. So things like dolphins, which that are specifically sensitive to noise, and also fish and all what exists in the marine environment is protected from the noise resulting from construction or operation of project. This is the silt curtain that is used. It is an effective device and has been utilized in recent projects for this purpose. So these are some kind of new technologies that we use in marine engineering to promote resilience, protect the environment, promote sustainability, and minimize the effect, the advantage of our projects in the surroundings. I hope that was useful. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, and thanks to the audience.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sosan. It's actually a very big honor to have you with us today.
Thank you.
We're actually going to transition to our final speaker, Ms. Ghana Annan. Ghana, you're
Hi.
as well. So far in our panel today, we've covered marine and coastline infrastructure, ports, ICT, and smart infrastructure. Ghana, our last speaker, specializes particularly in SDG 9 Target 9.4, which is all about making infrastructure more sustainable and more resource efficient, and also about encouraging the greater adoption of clean and environmentally sound technologies, which is incredibly important for a sustainable future. So Ghana, what's your approach to designing a sustainable built environment that minimizes ecological impacts and reduces the consumption of really priceless resources?
This is true. So basically, we utilize a system-based approach to look at communities, developments, and buildings holistically rather than in isolation from one another. Also, we put people first when designing for a sustainable urban model that is not only responsive to the environmental impacts, but also to the economic, performance, and social needs. And a crucial step in that direction is integrative design approach, mainly across all the stakeholders and functional disciplines to attain the synergy in the process of planning, design, and construction. In fact, we foster demand reduction and put priority for the resource conservation for the energy and the water and the waste at a minimum, and the framework that ensures optimizing key performance indices. We also consolidate and apply our expertise to the creation of mixed-use communities where people can actually live, work, perform, play, while incorporating responsive, sustainable design principles, and that is inclusive of integrating renewable energy, preserving natural resources, and optimizing outdoor microclimate.
Yeah, Ghana, about that last point, so there's a great deal of interest in these issues, integrating renewable energy, preserving natural resources. And I know that because you and your team have been very busy. So why are clients more interested right now in sustainable green building design? Why are they more interested than they've been before?
Right. So basically, clients are aware today more than before of the impacts of the climate change, which are anticipated to be felt strongly, especially in the Middle East region. The water stress and the extreme temperatures will become more and more intense, even more than the record settling levels that we even see today. In fact, the International Energy Agency has stated that in order to avoid those dangerous levels of climate change, all future infrastructure, including cities, buildings, power stations, industries, and even agriculture need to be designed to be low carbon. Now, what makes an urban environment well designed? Simply, it is by making use of the latest technologies to generate efficient energy and then use this energy wisely. And this is accompanied with using fewer and less carbon intensive material, all of which can tackle emissions while creating an environment that is geared towards the occupants' comfort and social sustainability.
Okay, that sounds great. But how does this work in practice? What's the approach to making it work? What are the actions that you have to take?
Definitely. So we have successfully been using a broad range of tools to resolve complex design decisions and lead on innovation. And this is definitely while applying local and international standard green codes, such as LEED, GSAS, ISTIDAMA, eco-districts, green building regulations, BREEAM, CEQA. And this is done through using very dynamic and software tools that are really helpful, such as integrated environmental solution software that serves as I said, dynamic simulation modeling tool for both buildings and master plan. Our sustainable design approach is effectively suited for the climate conditions where the project is located in, and the industry directions, and definitely for the typologies to ensure that the human-made systems work with the natural ones. So we promote the use of community facilities by maintaining thermal comfortable outdoor microclimate, and this is done, for example, using shaded walkways, inclusive of parks, open spaces, bicycle facilities, optimized transportation options, and transit supportive practices to various accessible amenities. Also, for the parking, we recommend using electric charging stations for green vehicles because this increases the reliance on electric cars, which results in greenhouse gas emission reduction.
Okay, I know. So Ghana, I know something you want to share today is key sustainability drivers that any development can and should follow to become more sustainable. Can you walk us through the key sustainability drivers that you incorporate in your design and tell us about the ones that have the highest impact?
Right. So I will start with the water efficiency because our design promotes water demand reduction inclusive of various schemes and strategies. First, we promote installing efficient fixtures and mitigating losses through monitoring. Second, we target zero potable water and irrigation by investigating the possibility of having a sewage treatment plant for reuse in irrigation. In addition to that, we have an efficient irrigation strategies such as drip irrigation, and also by specifying the adaptive and native plants who typically use much less water than any other plant. Moreover, we target zero potable water and process applications by means of TSE water in process such as cooling tower makeup. And if feasible, we design for 100% grey water collection, treatment, and reuse in flushing, for example, for maximum water conservation and reuse. And finally, we do recommend always rainwater harvesting, collection, and reuse. Moving to the energy demand reduction and renewable energy. So energy demand reduction is enabled through passive design. In addition to optimized HVAC efficiency and efficient lighting in appliances and the use of renewable sources of energy. Those sustainable strategies include optimal street layouts and width, cool roof implementation, conducting district cooling strategy, and using renewable energy sources such as solar and wind, in addition to selecting highly efficient mechanical and electrical equipment. We also promote the use of various innovative schemes such as solar energy roads by means of, for example, photovoltaic panels, powered street lights, and street furniture like solar benches. Now moving to the zero waste to landfill. And the solid waste management is one of the important health and environmental issue the world is currently facing with the increase of the population. So we typically aim to reduce the amount of waste taken to landfill by adopting source segregation, recycling, composting at recycling companies, in addition to efficient pneumatic waste collection system. A pneumatic waste collection system transports waste at high speed through underground pneumatic tubes to a collection station where it is compacted, sealed in containers. Once those containers are full, it is transported away and emptied. But this system really helps facilitate the separation and recycling of waste process. We also recommend 100% waste treatment on site using waste to energy plant. For the sustainable procurement, the conservation, as I said earlier, of natural resources and the use or reuse of material and structure have a major impact on the environment. We always specify the use of local material to reduce the impact of long distance transportation. We also use certified products and material with enhanced environmental, health, and resource conservation attributes. We can also prioritize the material with recycled content, environmental certified performance materials such as concrete concrete with fly ash, recycled steel, and bio-based material. Now, for sustainable construction, lately it has been recommended to integrate the robot-based and 3D printing technology into the design of construction processes to offer improvement in accuracy, consistency, and efficiency. Now, one would ask me, how is that helpful? The high precision enables the construction robots to reduce the waste, and eventually this improves sustainability. For the enhanced microclimate, we do care about the health and well-being of the occupants. So an elevated experience and lifestyle is mainly driven by climate adaptive design. We design for wind and solar control specifically through optimized massing, orientation, shading, and mitigation of the sun, wind, and dust. We aim for 100% outdoor thermal comfort by providing shaded seating areas, evaporative cooling, and water fountains, which proved that they can provide refreshing surrounding atmosphere for cooling and humidifying effect, especially in the hot and humid climate that we deal with in most of our projects. We also target 100% heat island mitigation by specifying light-colored surfaces in site landscape. And finally, for mobility, since the pedestrian walkability and bikeability generate no air pollution, no greenhouse gases, and very much little noise, we promote sustainable non-motorized transport corridors by designing for electric vehicles. This is inclusive of trucks and cars, bicycle network, and solar-powered shaded pedestrian walkways.
Ghana, thank you so much for walking us through this. I know that those are things that you apply on projects, and it helps you help clients reach very high standards of sustainability certification, including LEED Platinum and all of those. I know there's one more thing that you've been working on recently, which is sustainable design for roads as well. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Why are roads problematic, and what's the road towards a more sustainable design?
Right. So one of the primary intent of an urban development is the design of sustainable roadways. While the asphalt is the most common material that we typically use for such an application, an important figure is really alarming, which is that every 1 ton of asphalt needs around 275 megajoules of energy. However, in order to reduce this amount of energy consumption, warm mixed asphalt can be used instead of hot mixed asphalt, the conventional use of hot mixed asphalt. So the fuel consumption during the warm mixed asphalt manufacturing is typically reduced 20%, and this enhances the embodied energy. Also, while considering the asphalt with lighter colors, it will also help enhance the surface reflectivity and reduce the heat built up and temperature increase through presenting more sustainable model of the road materials. Now, also, we can introduce sustainability here by using recycled and renewable material. We have 2 types of sustainable materials that have been used in the have been used lately, such as the reclaimed asphalt pavement and the recycled content aggregate. The reclaimed asphalt pavement, it contains 95% of natural byproduct aggregates, which is really important, high figure. And the recycled content aggregate, we can use the demolition of roads, runways, and concrete bridges and buildings instead of using new raw materials and extracting them.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. That's very interesting. So Ghana, any final words? Anything to conclude with?
Definitely. I would like to say that cities around the world are measured on how well they support healthy, vibrant, and productive lifestyles. With a renewed urban design framework, we can set out crucial principles and achieve high-quality buildings, urban infrastructure, public spaces, and streets with a range of lifestyle options for more diverse communities and distinct urban culture. So the opportunity exists to lay the foundation for a new trajectory towards a sustainable, resilient growth and contemporary urban life designed for the people, and it protects the environment. Thank you so much for having me today, Haya.
Thank you, Ghana. Thank you so much for being here. And with that, I'm actually going to kick off our Q&A. We have a couple of questions from our audience. So the first question we got was, where is digital twin technology used? So I think with that, I'm going to bring up Ahmed.
Hi, sure. I mean, I think Mohammed and I have a bit of an idea. So digital twins, I mean, these can be used for on a small scale for objects, for processes, and it can go as large as basically smart cities. So what is a digital twin? It's basically a fully digitalized or virtual replica, a detailed replica of the object, process, or the city. And it's extremely helpful. I mean, it's quite a bit of an investment when you're talking on the scale of a city, but you have basically all those we were talking about before, all these processes, all these sensors that you're collecting a lot of data throughout the city with. And imagine if you have a digital twin, so basically your city is digitalized, and it will help you, for instance, predict in terms of if you're building a new building, right? How is it going to interact with the surrounding? How is it going to how is the construction process going to go? If you need the first responders to come in, for instance, when you have traffic. So you can see it helps a lot with simulation in a digital world before it actually happening, as well as it helps you with live monitoring of what's happening around your city. I mean, there are a couple of examples that I can think of. I mean, Singapore invested quite a few millions, more than a few actually, I think 70 million, to just have that digital mirroring of the city. Mostly to turn it into like a catastrophe-proof city. India seems to have to be considering, I think if I remember correctly, building a city based on the data that they're collecting from a digital twin. So it's really interesting. I mean, it's implemented in a lot of scenarios on a smaller scale, but if we're bringing it up here, we're probably talking about a digital twin for the smart city itself. So I hope that clarifies the image. So it is rolling out. It's a big investment for a city, but you would expect to see that in newer smart cities that are being deployed across the world.
Okay.
And maybe Mohammed has anything to add.
Mohammed, would you like to add anything, or we go on to the next question?
Actually, I want to talk about the purpose of digital twin. I want to add that the main purpose is to eliminate any human or practical error that would happen. So we can predict the errors through simulations. We can put procedures and test the procedures on virtually. Yep. So we eliminate the cost of the error that might arise in the future.
Excellent. And that's digital twin technology. I also have another question for you, Mohammed, and maybe for Ahmed as well, and anyone familiar. So there's a project in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia called The Line. It's part of NEOM, the new city that is rising in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Sangram here is asking, is this an example of an SDG 9?
Yeah, actually SDGs are guidelines. So. And recently, most of the new projects, the big projects, mega projects, mainly the projects in the KSA, we know we have the NEOM project, the Red Sea project, the Qiddiya projects. All these projects are confirming and inspired by not only SDG 9, but by all the Sustainability Development Goals. And as that, we are involved in most of these projects, and we are confirming our design to be matching with the requirements of the SDGs.
And I'd like to add to that, that I mean, these projects that Mohammed mentioned, those 3 projects are what I was referring to as like the dream project for a smart city. They're greenfield projects. So literally, they're taking a whole bunch of land with not a lot of established there and trying to maintain, of course, the sustainability of it. So they're trying to maintain the environment there, but they can just build for the future. And this is what's extremely excited about those 3 cities. And that's why you have people from all over the world just brought together in that to be part of that futuristic approach to building a city. And then it's extremely exciting.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Ahmed, and we actually we're very proud at DAR. We're very proud to be supporting these visions in some of the ways. For sure, Qiddiya, if our audience would like to have a bit more detail about that, then that's available on dar.com. I also have a question for everyone, actually. So we have a young person, I think, here. He's asking, how can I prepare myself to be part of this revolution? You know, what skills are needed? So, Ahmed, any ideas on what our next generation should be looking at?
Well, to be completely honest, I mean, right now, what we're facing in the world and the digitization and of our entire lives, I'm pretty sure it's coming more naturally than if we were going back like 5, 6, 7 years ago. So it's really an understanding of, first of all, we're talking about sustainability here, and I'm sure Lena would approve. It's knowing your surrounding, trying to maintain your environment, and really being a part of helping out and contributing to understanding what aspects affect the environment and what don't. In terms of technology, I mean, there's a lot of big talk happening about smart cities, about the Internet of Things, about 5G, and this is we're living it, right? So I mean, I would definitely recommend just being involved in reading up about these new technologies and really a lot of ideas. Some of them seem extremely futuristic, but so did, I don't know, like airplanes, I don't know, 30 years ago, right? So they are being implemented, and I personally have seen some of the concepts, whether developed in NEOM or something, that they want to achieve, and even though it seems far-fetched, but really it's not, and there are trials and prototypes. So it's really, I would personally recommend for anyone that is interested in the technology aspect of it is to have the analytical skills to just read through different articles, maybe some of the research that was done, and I mean, at DAR we've developed across different disciplines quite a bit of knowledge in that aspect as well. So join us for an internship, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely would love to have you. Mohammed, would you like to add anything to that?
Yes, indeed. Actually, when we discussed the smart cities, we presented the strategy part, and then we presented the technology and the system part. But we have a third part, which is data. Smart cities are the biggest generator of data. So data is the new gold. So if you want to learn a skill nowadays, it shall be around the data. So it's either in data security in terms of a blockchain or cybersecurity, or it's within the data analysis field in terms of machine learning, coding, like Python, R languages, the languages that are able to perform machine learning applications. And all these skills will put you ahead in several industries such as fintech, biotech, edtech, and agritech. Other interesting field is psychology and sociology, since all these new technologies shall be human-centered and shall fulfill human needs. So also being in psychology and with some knowledge in tech, that would be a valuable skill nowadays. And for sure, learning skills in the energy and ICT sectors, mainly in renewable energy, would give you advantage in the career field and nowadays.
Definitely, thank you, Mohammed. And we'll conclude this question and our Q&A with some advice as well for upcoming engineers from Ghana. Ghana, go ahead, please.
Yes, so as I started my presentation, I really stress on the integrated approach among all stakeholders and the various disciplines. So sustainability, it has to include all the trades. So it's dependent on the background of whoever is interested in sustainability, whether architecture, mechanical, structures, telecom, electrical, they can all contribute to sustainability. There are local and international standards that can give us a very nice framework of where we can start. So, and that's all available online. And what's so nice that lately we're having for each country its own standard. So it's dependent on the climate they're in. So I advise whoever is interested to check out those standards and check out all the green journals and research that is coming out. Now, also, I would like to add, like, for example, the standards that we have, they, as I said, they can give you a framework. So those frameworks, some are mandatory and some are optional. And the ones that are optional have definitely innovative strategies that are available out there. And one of the innovation strategies that we have been working on is the phase change material, the kinetic flooring, all types of ways to use more renewable energy than using the conventional types of energy that increases the emissions. So yes, please do have an idea about sustainability, because this is the future and we need to mitigate the climate change, and we need to all work together, and it all starts at the young generation's career and path. So it's good to have goals and aims so that we can all together target and aim for. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ghana. And finally, from Dr. Sousan, some words for our upcoming engineers. Any advice?
Yes, we were talking today about resilience, and my advice to young engineers is to be resilient. You need to be flexible. You need to understand your market, which is the engineering market. You need to understand the needs of the clients and of the fast-changing world around us. And of course, the young generation is doing pretty well in this. Because they grow up in an environmental that is very fastly changing. So they just need to be resilient, to collect information, to be multidisciplinary. Because back in the days, we have very specialities, but now, okay, you will have a specialty, but you need to know a little bit about other specialities, especially that most of the projects are now multidisciplinary. We have a lot of specialities involved, and you cannot just be isolated from other disciplines that are working with you in the project. So this is my advice for the young generation. Thank you. It was a pleasure being in this live event. Yeah, and thanks for the audience, for you, Haya, for my fellow. Well, just thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sousan. And with that, we're going to be concluding this session and the entire World Engineering Day for Sustainable Development series. Thank you all so much for taking the time to come to our session today, and thank you if you've been seeing the sessions as well during this month. We hope that you found them useful, found them insightful, learned a little bit about those very essential sustainable development goals, and learned a little bit about what engineers have to do in order to support this kind of broad societal movement. Thank you again. If you do want to find out a little bit more about DAR, you can always visit the website. It's www.dar.com. It's very easy. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook. We would love to hear from you, what you thought about this session. So just leave a comment on our LinkedIn or any of our social media networks. We will hopefully be sharing all of these recordings on these networks as well. So one last time, thank you very much, and we'll hopefully see you in the future with future events. Thank you so much.